Hello friends and neighbors, my name is Rocky. I work for Olympus and I'd like to talk to you today about the Shockpulse lithotripsy system. Odds are, if you're watching this video, I am your urology rep, but if I'm not your urology rep, that means that this video has become incredibly popular and has gone viral on the internet, and I've made millions of dollars in advertising revenues, which is awesome. But what we want to cover today is how to set up and use this lithotripsy system, which is typically used in percutaneous nephrolithotomy procedures and also cystolitholipaxy procedures. So it's a stone machine. It breaks up stone and then it also sucks stone out of the patient. So there are three component groups to this system. First of all, you have the generator here. And typically I set these up with the optional foot switch. There are buttons on the transducer that I'll show you in just a minute that allow you to control the device, but it's easier to use the foot switch. So here it is right here. You've got a standard power pedal and then a high power pedal. So that's the generator. The instrument tray is here, and there are three parts to the instrument tray. There is a wrench that you use to screw on the disposable probe. This is the handpiece or the transducer, and here are those buttons I was talking about. And then a nose cone that goes over the probe, and I'll show you how that goes together. So there are the buttons, as I mentioned earlier. The other thing that this system has, and those of you that have used the CyberWand, this is very similar to the CyberWand with some subtle differences, and it's also easier to set up and easier to use. But it has this suction control valve on the handpiece that allows you to control, and you'd set this up obviously with basic suction tubing that would go to either your Stryker Neptune or maybe your Zimmer suction machine. But at any rate, I found that it's easiest to just have this turned up all the way as opposed to monkeying around with it and then just control the suction on your machine. And in terms of suction settings, you don't want to have the machine cranked up as high as it can go. You kind of want it in the 80 to 100 range, because ultimately what will happen, the probe has a very large lumen, and it'll suck all the fluid out of your procedure. You'll go through all kinds of saline bags, number one, and then secondly, it'll collapse the space that the doctor's working in, whether it be the bladder or the kidney. So 80 to 100 is good suction setting. The other thing is, also similar to the CyberWand, what I've seen a lot of surgical teams do is they'll put a crimp in the suction tubing or pinch it off when the machine is not being used, so that the cavity can be filled up and distended, and then when they step on the pedal and actually run the device, they'll open up the tubing so that the suction works. So that's the instrument tray. And then this is the sterile probe. These are single packaged, sterile packaged. It's single use, throwaway probe, and it comes packaged like this. It's got some different parts to it, but it doesn't come apart. So you've got it'll all stay together. It's fairly easy to manage. When you're putting this together on the back table, just like the CyberWand, what you'd do is you'd put the probe into the threads there. You want to hold this down as low as you possibly can, because if you're spinning it on this spring right here, you can see that it actually doesn't move the probe. You want to screw this in finger tight, like so. And then the wrench that's in the tray is a torque wrench. And the way that you want to hold this is, I found this best if you kind of hold this upright like this, and you want to use the wrench with the writing facing up, because then it'll torque the right way. And you want to put just enough tension on this to where this wrench gives, and you'll see it kind of bend for me there. That's enough tension. That's all you need. The nose cone goes over the top of the probe here, and you just put this on finger tight. That's all set up like that. And then after you hand off the cord here to the circulator or whoever's plugging this thing in, there's a little kind of thumb piece on the top of this, and that is the part that goes up, and it'll just plug right into the machine. The other thing that I should point out too, and this has come up a couple of times, I don't know if you can see this, if you can zoom in on that. it looks like when you look at the inside of that cord, it looks like it's broken. It looks like there's some pieces missing from that cord. That's actually the way it's designed. So don't be concerned that it's broken or it's not going to work. That it's supposed to look like that. I'm going to turn on the machine first so that you can see it all lit up. Oh, I need to plug in the foot switch. No, it's plugged in. Oh, here you go. So the foot switch is enabled. The other thing I should mention too is these buttons on the transducer will not work when you have the foot switch connected to the machine. So I'm going to plug in the handpiece here, and that's it. It's ready to go. Unlike the Cyber Wand, you don't have to tune it. You don't have to do anything. This is plug and play, and you'll see if I step on the pedal here, it just starts going. And so it's ready to roll. The other thing that you can do if you're not using the foot switch, this is kind of a cool feature, but it can be tricky to operate, which is why I typically set it up with the foot switch. You can use the buttons here to operate the device, and if you double click it like a mouse, it'll activate and just run. So I'll show you here. There it goes. But as you can see, it took me a couple tries to get it going, so they don't work perfectly, which is why I typically use the foot switch. What else can I mention? It's a pretty straightforward machine. There isn't much else to talk about. You'll obviously get error messages here if there's something wrong with the probe, but it's pretty much plug and play. So the other thing I should mention is takedown or cleanup of the device when the case is finished. You just take the nose cone off, and then you want to use the same wrench that you used to torque it on, and I'd hold it the same way. You want the label, the Olympus label up, and you hold the transducer like this. One thing that I should mention is after prolonged use, this probe can get cranked on there pretty tight. It gets torqued on. So you may have to really kind of work at it to get it off. But basically you just loosen it up, you'll feel it give, and then you can unscrew it with your fingers like this. Also, this probe, the probes do come in different sizes. We have two primary sizes that we use for procedures. This is a 3.76 millimeter probe, and this is the most common one that's used through a nephroscope. We do have a 3.4 millimeter probe as well. It's the same length, and it's also used either in the bladder or in the kidney. And that's a little bit smaller, and so it works better if you have not necessarily a mini perk. I think it might be too big for a mini perk scope, but if you have a pediatric scope or something that has a smaller channel, the 3.4 millimeter will fit, whereas the 3.76 won't. Thank you.